Testing, testing. All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming this morning. We appreciate everyone's time. We are going to be speaking to a lot of agencies today, so I'm going to ask that you keep your remarks very specific. If you have statewide changes, we do not need to hear about those. We're aware of those, and they're consistent across the budget. If for some reason you deviate from that, that's the ones we're going to focus on. For our committee members up here, because we received the House budget so far out and delayed from when we were supposed to get it, we're going to track from a main sheet that Jennifer has done a phenomenal job of putting together here. So when you come up, we'll ask you to talk about any changes you have, as well as anything you may have on the capital side as well. I'm going to ask doorkeeper back there if you would close the door from the outside, please. Nobody's paying attention. Thank you, General. All right. So if you all please bow your heads with me. Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for this opportunity to come together to go through these important numbers and how we serve the people of Georgia. We just ask you to give us your wisdom, guidance, and discernment as we move forward through these hearings today. It's your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Okay, as promised, we're going to go backwards on the list. So come on down, Director Stallings, with GMA. And everybody's going to come up to the podium right over here.
Good morning, Chairman and Senate. I would just like to acknowledge the great wisdom in flipping the order and saving the first this time. So ours is very simple. On your tracking sheet, I believe we've only got a couple lines there that we want to hit on this morning. I just want to say, obviously, thank you for the work of the Senate and the committee for the increased cost of living adjustments. We appreciate all the hard work that's gone in there from the committee as well as OPB, and we just want to say thank you on that one. Jumping down to 27.7.5 on our tracking sheet, not exactly sure where it's going to come off of yours.
We've got it.
Yes, sir. The 125,340, that's an increase to enhance State Operations Center. The State Operations Center, as we all know, was updated about 7 years ago. We had a big remodel there, but as you know, sir, technologies don't last forever, and so we're having to update a lot of things in there, screens, computer systems, two major components that we run, Esri, Javari, so we would ask favorable consideration upon that line item. And so 27.76, utilizing existing funds and increases. Last year was a year where we had to hold back some money from our grants. I think the majority of our legislators received letters from our constituents, the folks that we support through those grants. And so we just appreciate the hard work of OPB and this panel and committee of getting that back in there. So we would also ask for the favorable support of the 352,420 that's in there. And I'll just bring one more thing back up. You'll see a significant increase in our allocation of state funds total from the amended budget from last year over last year. That includes a lot of things that this committee specifically did as far as the gang database and things of that. And I just want to say thank you again. That has seen phenomenal support, and we have done a lot there. You'll see some reoccurring stuff. The state has made some critical investments in its infrastructure and resiliency, and I just thank this committee for your hard work, and I will answer any questions that you might have, sir.
Well, thank you, Director. I appreciate the great work. I don't think we can do enough to continue to go after criminal street gangs, and we know the horrific impact they have on our communities. However, we also know the results when we take those street gangs down of what it does in order to improve public safety. And actually, I wanted to just say that I'm proud that we got 7 years worth of life out of some of that technology. That's pretty extraordinary. That's almost twice the normal lifespan of technology.
Yes, sir. Well, we appreciate that.
Great. Any questions?
Just a query. Just a quick query, Director. Based on the title of your agency, what's your involvement when we have these issues bubble up with immigration and other things here in the state? How engaged are we?
So as often as we have communications, as long as we're warned, I get a very vague document that lets us know periodically the number of individuals that cross the border without names, without locations. It's called an intended destination document. But more than that, I don't get a lot of notice. I ask for a lot of questions. I open dialogue. I welcome any conversations that I can get from our federal partners, but right now it's, as you know, sir, it's difficult getting that open line of communication.
And this vague information is coming from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, thank you. All right, seeing no more questions, thank you for your great work, and please tell your team thank you from us.
Number one on the page and number one in your heart, sir. I appreciate it.
Tell ya, you're moving up. All right, next we'll have our friends at Gypstick, Director Wigington. Come on down.
Page 86.
That's page 86 on our tracking sheets. Thank you, Jennifer.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee member. I will jump straight to the line items. First, I am grateful as well that you reversed the list, and thank you for this committee and OPB for supporting some of our efforts. So 269.5, I'm skipping over the statewide change. That is a line item to increase a mechanic position, a curriculum specialist, and instructor development position. The initial request that we presented did not include COLA because it had not been presented at that time. So the document that you received from the House will have the total amount including the COLA for those positions. So that amount is $321,112.
All right.
And then I'm going to skip over, we've got some true-up budget changes, and what those are just some items that were underfunded or not funded to expectations. Those are 269.6, 269.7, 269.8, and 269.11. So those were true-up budget requests. The next line item that there was an increase was 269.9. That is a workload adjustment. The proposal is to...
And Chris, just want to make sure, we are looking, because the House gave us these numbers so late, we're looking at something that doesn't always match up to your numbers. So if you want to just eliminate the numbers, talk about the specific items, that will help us better than the numbers, because we're...
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, you ready?
If you
So
just-
the next one is for the increase of basic training. Mm-hmm. So that line item, again, is 269.9.
All right, perfect.
All right, then we'll go on. So some additional changes that were recommended by the House.
You don't want to talk about 3910.9, huh? No, that's okay. That's a director's raise in there. I don't know if you had any issue with that one.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
269.8
all right.
on mine.
Okay.
That was the true-up adjustments. So thank you for supporting that.
Our pleasure.
And then, so there are three items on the list that the House included or added to our budget. Number one, the law enforcement division at the center was not included in the $3,000 adjustment. So that is one of the additional add-ons. And then last year, there was legislation that was included CPR training. So we were funded for half a year and did not get the full funding for a full year. So they've added that funding for the full year. And then they moved funds that were asked for by post for resiliency training to us. So we would be able to do resiliency training for law enforcement, firefighters, and 911 dispatchers around the state.
Very good.
So the infrastructure projects, we did have several, but 4 of those were moved to the amended year budget. Mm-hmm. So we only have 2 remaining. Those 2 are 4 outdoor training area buildings, and then another rifle range that will help in the addition of basic mandate training. And with that, that would complete the request and open it up to any questions.
And the Public Safety Training Center, you're looking at the one in Forsyth in the main campus, right? And then the rifle range, those are the items that we're talking about from the capital projects?
That is correct, yes, sir.
All right, great. Question from Senator Robertson?
Thank you. Director, the resiliency training that the funding's in there for?
Yes, sir.
The instructors for that program, you already have those on campus? You're going to be using your instructors? You're going to be using all instructors around the state that are certified in that type of training?
So a little bit of both. We do have instructors on staff currently, and in that funding, it did ask for 3 additional instructors, 1 that would manage the program and 2 that would be additional help within the funds that are already asked for. But we would use instructors that have already been trained around the state as well.
But beyond the management of it, do we have enough instructors around the state to support and maintain that program?
I do not know the answer to that question currently because I'm not sure. That's been a program that Post has ran up to this point, so I do not know the number of instructors that we have in that currently.
Well, can I trust that you and the director of Post will partner up on that to make sure that we're not doing any duplication of positions? If we have, and as you know, I was a Post certified instructor, as were you.
Yes,
and there were a lot of times that the state and other places leveraged our training to bring us in to save a few dollars. So
Yes, sir.
just want to make sure that we're looking at this as a plus and not as a drain.
Yes, sir. Oh, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right. Very well done. Again, thank you for all the great work you do down in GIPSIC for us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Director. Okay, next up, Post Director. Come on down. It's page 86 on our tracking sheet. The multiple tracking sheets.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee member. Thank you for the opportunity to present our FY 2025 budget for Post this morning. Let me begin by stating that we support the proposed budget as submitted by Governor Kemp and OPB. As of March 5th, we had received our budget instructions from the Senate. The original budget proposed as submitted by OPB in the governor's office. I understand now that that has been changed. And what I'll be presenting today will reflect those changes. Having said that, I will proceed with that information now. The first one is an increase of funds to provide an additional $3,000 targeted salary enhancement for selected post-certified law enforcement officers for a total of $80,455. I would be remiss to not point out that this increase omits raises for our command staff officers, hearing officers, and others who are also post-certified law enforcement officers. This will result in, of course, salary compression within our agency. Unlike larger agencies, we simply do not have the available funds to award these raises out of our existing budgets. The House has proposed an additional amount to that funding, which would raise that to $135,767, which we would support, which would allow for those raises to take place.
So, Director, just want to make sure we're clear. So with that, then you will be whole in your
I believe
department?
so, yes,
Okay,
sir.
great, thank you.
The next line would be increased funds for the Georgia Post Resiliency Program. We just got done talking about that through the GIPSTIC program. That was originally funded by private donations. We began this program with nothing, and later we received a CJCC grant. When that expired, the governor added a $647,000 budget increase to Post. It's my understanding this program has been stripped from Post at this time. The funds will be provided to GIPSTIC to proceed with that program. I simply can't express strongly enough how opposed to that I am. But I'm a low man on the totem pole, and I'll do as I'm told. Increased funds for one curriculum auditor for a total of $118,891. Increased funds to hire one investigator for the division deputy director for a total of $127,028. We've shown a substantial increase in the cases being worked by Post through our investigators. And 2021 investigators cleared 663 investigations. That number has continued to increase in 2022. They cleared 840 cases, and last year we cleared 1,561 cases. So as you can tell, our workload is continuing to increase. The last item on our list was a proposal to increase funds for system maintenance to support an online gang and human trafficking program. That total amount was $20,000. The program was created at Post at the request of Governor Kemp and the First Lady. This is required annual training that every law enforcement officer must complete each year in order to satisfy the requirements of the governor's initiative training. That training will
Director-
need to be updated annually.
Director, my understanding is there is similar training that GIPSTIC has. Is that accurate?
No, sir.
Is Chris still here?
This program has to be consistent throughout the state. It has to be updated annually. And when we created the program, it was created closely through interaction with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, the Attorney General's office, and the Governor's office to develop the program.
Well, let's hold on that because this is an important issue I want to talk about because I
This is
agree how
governor
critical-
mandated training. This is not additional, more in-depth training. This is designed to get every public safety official in the state basic knowledge of what a gang is, how to recognize it, what to do with it. The same thing with human trafficking.
I agree with what you're saying, Director. Welcome back. Director Wigington, we're talking about the system maintenance and support for the gang and human trafficking training system. The House put in their notes that this training is available also through GIPSTIC. Is that the same training?
I have not seen Director Ayers' training, so I can't tell you today that if it is the same training or not, but we do offer 3 online gang training classes and 2 human trafficking.
Okay, I'm going to ask after this meeting that if the 2 directors would sit down and go through what you're being mandated to provide via the edict from former Governor Deal versus what you have, and if there's a difference, we need to know that and figure out and make sure the budget's correct so we're doing the right thing. So if you all would please do that after the meeting, I'd appreciate that. Got a question from Senator Robertson.
Yes, I'm glad the director came back in and Director Ayers, or as I know as Mike, we've been friends for a long time. And I was going to say, similar to what Chairman Albert said, is after this meeting, I would love it if you gentlemen have about 15 minutes, we could go up to my office and sit down and have a conversation about this because, you know, I've got some concern and I'll say it here and I will catch a whole lot of heat for it in the hallways. There are a whole lot of elected officials in this building that make a whole lot of decisions based on the budgets of these agencies that don't understand what a pit is and don't understand what 1,561 investigations are as far as man hours go. And I think the best way for us, and I'm talking about us, to solve this problem is for us to sit down and have a conversation and try to untangle some of these knots so that we can complete the mission together and not with the appearance of conflict or opposition. So I would really appreciate if we could sit down for a few minutes today and have a brief conversation to get the ball rolling in that direction. And I appreciate Chairman Albers recognizing the notes in the budget and trying to clear that up.
Thanks, Senator. All right. Any other questions for Director Ayers? One more question.
Director Ayers, is there anything in your budget dealing with your salary?
No, sir.
Has there been any conversation about your base salary?
Yeah, I think you would have to define what conversation you're
Has there
referring
been
to.
any conversation about raising your salary to get you in line with other directors with the same types of responsibilities?
No, sir.
Okay. If you could let that be a part of this conversation today, because these 1,561, I want to be perfectly clear, and you correct me if I'm wrong, these are investigations against law enforcement officers based on complaints and failures alleged against post-certified law enforcement officers, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
And is it not also correct that Georgia decertifies more law enforcement officers for misconduct and for failures than any other post council in the United States of America?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
By far.
And somebody that is handling 1,500 law enforcement investigations of law enforcement officers, and these investigations being conducted by post-certified law enforcement officers and investigators to this volume, and are as aggressive as y'all are on cleaning up some of the failures within our profession, I think that the director of that department needs to make fair wages compared to others around the state. So I'd love to have that conversation today too, not to put you in an awkward position.
And Senator, while we were talking, Jennifer's going to work with OPB to get a list of all the directors' salaries so we can look at the parity between those.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. We're going to keep moving on. Firefighters, standards and training. Come on down. That is also on page 86 of our tracking sheet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senate members, committee members. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I will be extremely brief. I want to update the numbers a little bit on our agency real quick. We are the testing and certifying agency as well as compliance for the fire service in the state of Georgia. Because we're working so well with departments throughout the state to try to consolidate some of the departments, some of the smaller departments into one, we brought the number down somewhere to around 570 departments throughout the state. Still about 3,500 or more stations throughout the state. And through our new ACADIS program, which we're very grateful for, we're able to determine that there's about 29,000 fire service personnel in the state of Georgia. My agency does all the site reviews to check compliance and testing and certifying, which, by the way, I gave these numbers last time, but the number of written tests we graded in 2022, which was the full year of written tests as opposed to online testing, was 22,260 tests taken and graded in the state of Georgia for the fire service. This year, already since the end of May, we're over 8,000 tests taken. So we're well ahead of schedule by getting people not just tested and certified, but online where they need to be. And so we also do that with 10 people right now. And so my request is pretty simple. On the tracking sheet that I'm going on, Chairman, you've already just announced that there's like 3 or 4 different tracking sheets going on, but I'm going on 39.9 and I've lost it already. 0.8.2, and I'm just simply asking for the recommendation, the request I made of 2 additional people, and I'm asking for the 2 additional people on my staff, which will put us up to where I can get more people out in the field to do the site reviews and do the testing. It also includes computers and test banks and travel for them to go out and do this, because now we're able to take the testing mechanism to fire service personnel throughout the state with hotspots, so if they have poor internet, we can go in there if they have cell service and we can test them on site and get them up and going quicker.
And I want to thank you for really rolling out the red carpet and giving phenomenal service to those departments by going to them.
Yes, sir.
And that was a bit of a challenge we've had in the past, and I think the reputation that you are delivering to our local fire departments is extraordinary. I want to thank you for the great work you're doing.
Thank you.
Questions from the committee members?
I just briefly want to thank you. In one of my counties, I have 10 volunteer fire departments, and each one of them are their own 501c3. And the energy y'all have brought by going out there and working within those counties, bringing them together, makes the residents of that county feel a whole lot safer and secure knowing that they're all coordinating and working together. Thank you for your hard work, and with 10 people, it's amazing you're able to accomplish what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. And I'll certainly share that with my staff, because they're actually proud of the work they're doing throughout the state with such limited manpower. So,
Well, they should be, and please thank them on our behalf.
Yes,
All right, thank you,
Thank you.
Director.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much. Yes, sir.
All right. Department of Public Safety, Colonel, come on down. We're going to start on page 85 of our tracking sheets.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. It's truly an honor for me to be here representing the Department of Public Safety. I continue to be proud of our employees and what they do. They are compassionate, professional, trustworthy, and display the fortitude to do this job every day. They continue to set the standard for us. Please turn to, well, you got the page right there, the Senate tracking sheet. I think it comes as no surprise we're very supportive and excited for the governor's budget recommendation of 4% statewide COLA and the additional $3,000 for our sworn members. We also support various statewide adjustments in DOS insurance, GTA, and merit system billings. For aviation, on line 260.6, we support the governor's recommendation of $36,885 and the House's increase to $39,668 to cover the total cost of in-grade career path progressions for trooper pilots. This will allow us to prevent a budget shortfall in that program. In Capitol Police, on line 261.1, we support the governor's recommendation and the House's agreement of a reduction of $1.2 million. That will be moved from our state funds and paid by our agreement with Georgia Building Authority for manpower and supplies needed in and around Capitol Hill. In Department Administration on line 262.6, we support the governor's recommendation and House's agreement for one additional information technology employee to assist with our help desk. The $80,097 includes our salary and equipment cost. The help desk services our entire agency, including our sworn members and their in-car computer needs. On line 262.7, support the governor's recommendation and House agreement for the $125,000 to offset the cost of processing and distribution of crash report costs. On line 262.8, we support the governor's recommendation and House agreement to transfer $55,949 for the purchase of a multi-purpose copier for our public information office. This copier will be used to print programs, pamphlets, and booklets, and you'll see various recommended transfers throughout each of our programs where we will recognize the cost savings. In field services, offices, and services on line 263.6, we support the governor's recommendation for $452,558 and the House's increase to $453,600. This increase covers the total cost of salaries for vacant positions that were not included in the $6,000 pay increase in FY24 for our sworn members. We're projecting an increased graduation rate due to the success of our past trooper schools. In past years, we've been able to cover this salary increase with our attrition, but we can't do that anymore.
So, Colonel, real quick, that is the additional 35 trooper school graduates? Is that the line?
Yes, sir. We're just having a better graduation rate. Right. So those that we've projected before,
so this is over and above?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We're moving in the right direction.
Wonderful.
Moving to line 263.7, the $1.1 million increase for our dispatcher career path. These funds would add 2 non-supervisory levels to our dispatcher career path. Currently, there is only 1 non-supervisory level above the entry level, which makes it difficult to retain our experienced employees. Currently, we're experiencing approximately a 40% turnover rate with our dispatchers. Adding the 2 levels will allow us to both attract qualified candidates and hopefully retain our experienced dispatchers needed to ensure the safety of our sworn personnel.
You got a quick question, Colonel?
Yes, sir.
Colonel, those 2 career paths, how many personnel are going to be impacted by that to the 1.1 million level?
So that will be every one of our dispatchers who are above dispatcher 1 right now. We have about 131 dispatchers. So you will see at some point every one of those will be increased, because now you get hired, 1 year in you get 1 step level, and then you're done unless you get promoted to supervisor.
So is this 1.1 investment into the steps?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The 1.1 will add those 2 steps. So once you are a year over, then you'll have step 2 and step 3, and then you will get to the point where you could be promoted to a senior or chief.
So this is going to be an ongoing expense.
Yes,
once
sir.
the steps are created. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Appreciate it.
We support the governor's recommendation on line 263.8 to increase our fuel budget by $95,271 due to higher costs, especially for our diesel and aviation fuels. We also support the House's movement of these funds to that actual aviation program. We support the reduction of the one-time funds for Buckhead and Jekyll Island post. On line 263.11, we support the transfer of 2 positions that work under the Office of Professional Standards. The responsibility of recruiting, hiring, background checks, and costs of these positions are currently under DPS. However, these positions work at the GBI and are supervised by GBI staff. The $167,352 includes the position's total cost of salary and benefits.
You have one more question?
Colonel, the investment in the Buckhead precinct, the 1.2.
Yes, sir.
Is those existing funds?
Those were budgeted last year, and it just takes it out of the budget.
It's just a carryover?
No, they pulled out because
it
we
will
had
not
to
be
pay for it.
recurring.
We paid for it in the baby budget. This is just coming back out.
All right.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a ground-up precinct? This is not going to be lease space?
No, sir. It will be state-owned on state property.
All right, thank you.
Moving to law enforcement training program on line 264.6. This is a newly created program in fiscal year 24. We support the governor's recommendation and House's agreement of the $1.56 million to cover the estimated cost for the training of our trooper cadets. We've seen an increase in the number of graduates, so we're having fewer cadets quit trooper school, which is going to obviously increase the amount. For the Motor Carrier Compliance Division program on line 265.6, there's $2.59 million recommended to cover the annual cost of our weigh and motion monitoring system we previously presented in our amended 24 budget. Our last program is Office of Peer Support Services. We support the governor's total recommendation, House agreement to add $591,681 that includes 2 additional peer counselors and 2 additional mental health professionals. This funding will allow for 1 additional post-critical incident seminar and training for additional peer support workers. The work of this program is vital to our DPS officers as well as anyone in public safety in this state. The additional staff and an additional post-critical incident session will only enhance this important work. And moving to our capital projects that total $15 million. We support the $10.82 million to replace 106 vehicles, and this includes the outfitting of the equipment. This allows us to replace our vehicles when they are projected to reach 130,000 miles. We support the $1.4 million in major maintenance and repair for our facilities. Statewide, we benefit from the annual MMR funds to maintain and update our 89 facilities. That includes our post and weigh stations as needed. We support the recommendation of $2.28 million for a new post in Sylvania. This is based on the estimated cost for construction using the construction bid for the Reedsville post that we're currently bidding, which has the same floor plan. Post 21 Sylvania was built in 1960 and currently has major repairs that are needed throughout the building. Lastly, we support the recommendation of $485,000 for the additional construction funds needed for Post 32 Oconee. This is based again on that same floor plan that Reedsville and Sylvania will be on and puts us in that same area. In closing, I want to leave you with this. I can assure you our troopers and officers do the selfless work of putting their lives on the line to protect our communities and keep each of us safe every day. And I want to thank the governor and this legislative body for giving them the praise they deserve even when no one's watching. And we appreciate that. You don't know how far that goes when our folks hear those thank yous. And that's all I have, and I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you, Colonel. I would be remiss if I didn't say again with our strongest condolences of the loss of 2 of your troopers in the line of duty. They are truly heroes to our state. Yes, and to everyone who resides here. So we stand with you, with their families, and all of your troopers.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. It's been a tough month.
Indeed. One question. I know back in the amended 24 budget, we were talking about a new hangar for helicopter at the headquarters, and the budget seemed to move around a bit with the dollars. Was that hangar just for the physical building, or were there anything that went with that? Because it seemed the numbers changed significantly throughout the process.
That hangar, the plans for that hangar would also be our maintenance hangar, which would be where we'd put all our helicopters that needed their either engines rebuilt, any kind of maintenance, blades replaced. So that it would be more than just our traditional hangar that housed the helicopter and our personnel.
So if I'm correct, we have a deficiency of what's left to complete that hangar based on the 24 budget. Is that not accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you could have someone on your team get back to Jennifer and I on where that is so we can hopefully help get that completed. I know how important that is. In fact, more important each and every day.
Yes, sir. Well, I certainly will, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. I got a question from Senator Lucas.
Colonel, what are y'all plans on the post in Milledgeville?
In Milledgeville?
Yeah.
We just built one, so it's a brand new facility.
You got, so the one on 49, is that excess?
Yes, sir. We sold that property, it's been, gosh, 8 years ago. And we have a brand new facility we did a groundbreaking on last year, early last year. So we have a brand new building in
Where is that
Milledgeville,
located?
right beside the DDS facility. It's on a county road. I don't remember the name, but it's right next to the DDS facility in Milledgeville. It's actually a nice building.
Other questions from the committee members? Seeing none. Colonel, thank you so much. We
Thank you all.
appreciate all your great work and your department, and we'll pull up pardons and paroles next. In our tracking sheet, that is page 77.
Oh, it's a disaster.
At least I know I'm in a disaster with friends.
Yes.
Good morning, Chairman Albers and distinguished committee members. I am Chris Barnett, Executive Director for the Georgia Board of Pardons and Paroles. Let me start off by thanking the committee for the opportunity to be here today, and also for something that too often goes unsaid, and that is thank you for your steadfast leadership, your unwavering support, and your thoughtful guidance over the years, for which without we would not be able to achieve our public safety critical mission. So thank you so much. Outside of statewide changes, the Georgia Board of Pardons and Paroles has 3 unique agency line items, which really could be considered next steps or annualizing items that were approved during the amended 24 budget. So our first ask falls under the board admin program budget, line item 239.3, and that is an increase in funds for training software in the amount of $3,150. This annualizes an approval from the committee from the amended 24 budget. This record management software will track training, certification, in-service compliance, and more for our non-certified staff who are required to attend training annually, and will enhance our efficiency within our training unit because currently that is being tracked manually through spreadsheets. Our second line item falls under the Clemency Decisions Program budget, and that is 240.7, an increase in funds for 3 criminal investigators and 1 hearing examiner in the amount of $425,865. This is a follow-up to an equipment request that was approved by the committee in amended 24. The growth, and more importantly, the change in the prison population, the complexity of the cases that we're seeing are those driving forces behind the need for an additional hearing examiner and the criminal investigators to support that. To ensure the board's ability to meet its constitutional demands while protecting public safety, we ask the committee's favorable consideration. Finally, our last line item falls under line 240.6, and that is an increase in funds for 1 Georgia Crime Information Center terminal operator position in the amount of $58,323. This line item will allow us to hire 1 additional GCIC terminal operator to enter final parole arrest dispositions into GCIC. This will provide us the opportunity to centralize that administrative function and eliminate the need for our post-certified officers out in the field from having to perform these administrative functions, and allow them to use their focus and energy and resources on their critical public safety role. And that is our presentation, and I'll stand by for any questions.
Director, I thank you, and I want to commend the time I got to spend with you and your team not too long ago now, and especially embracing technology in order to become more efficient, as the number of folks that you are having to review has gone up considerably over the years, but leveraging technology to do that in a better, smarter, and cheaper way is certainly been effective. And we do understand that the folks we do currently have incarcerated are a different level of offender than we had even about 10 years ago prior to criminal justice reform. So I understand the complexity and appreciate again the work you and your team have been doing in that area.
Thank you so much.
Questions for Chris? Senator Robertson.
Director, I appreciate the need for the software to track the training of your staff, especially your post staff. I want to be clear, is your staff, the post training they're receiving, are they receiving that in-house or are they receiving that at GIPSTIC?
So are you asking about our post-certified folks?
Yes, sir.
Actually, they receive it both internally and through GIPSTIC and various other resources that are available out there.
Okay, but this is all post-certified training, right? I mean, that goes toward their annual hours?
Now, the training we're talking about here, this record management software is for our non-certified staff.
Right.
And so that is just general training, professionalism, ethics, of course, those governor mandated trainings that everybody has to do, sexual harassment, and human trafficking.
Okay, and all of that curriculums are created in-house and taught in-house?
Again, we get some from Gypsticks, some is done internally, again, whatever our training director comes up with.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you again for your time and leadership and all the folks that serve in pardons and paroles.
Thank you, sir.
DJJ, come on down, Director. All right, page 70 on our tracking sheet.
Righty. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you so much for all of the support that you continue to provide to the Department of Juvenile Justice. That's really appreciated by all of us, so thank you so much. And thank you to the men and women of DJJ and all of the hard work that they do. I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to start on, I think your line number may be 221.5. The House is 31.1.5.
We're going to start on the House lines. That's what we're tracking from right now. Thank you.
Okay. So what we have here is there's a increase of $38,450, which what has happened is in the targeted salaries for law enforcement, we had a couple of officers apparently that was left off the list, and then also to address some of the benchmark increases that we would have. So we're supporting the increase of the $38,450. And then the next thing that we have is 221.7, which is the cut in the amount of $1,544,403. We can take that cut because we have had some efficiencies in our contracts and our community services. The next item is the community services, an increase for our child caring institutions of 3%. Which the total request is $558,960, and we support this. We work very closely with our sister agency, DFACS, and we try to make sure that both agencies, that the dollar amount that we're paying is the same, so we're not competing against one another, so they're also making the same request. I'm going to jump down to 222.6, which is the request is $55,000. And what this would do is you all were gracious enough to fund in the amended budget audit tool software for us. And this would just help us with any training, licenses, or any additional programming that we may need. 222.7, once again, we've completed some contract projects, and so we can realize the cut of $62,974. The next line item is an increase for our juvenile correctional officers of the starting salary from $37,730 to $40,040, which is the starting salary of the correctional officers on the adult side. So the request that we're making for this particular program item is $10,692. We're next looking at 223.7. We're requesting $600,000 to do mobile welding labs for 3 of our long-term facilities, Augusta, Eastman, and Macon. We do everything that we can to try to prepare our young people to leave us, and so any skill sets that we can give to them so they can be successful helps, and this is just one of those initiatives. 223.8 is we're looking at trying to improve our grievance process. We have an external audit as well as internal audit that shows that our grievance process is broken because it's a paper process. Here what you have is just the request for $3,000, which the initial request was for $75,000. to allow us to pilot it in this particular program area. The reason why this is so critical is because we have a responsibility to afford all of our young people the right to conduct grievances, to submit a grievance. And without having this, what we will find ourselves is just difficult to track and to have transparency in this process. So what we're hoping is that at least in the future, maybe we can consider this particular one. In the meantime, we will try to see what we can do in-house to carry us over until we can make the request again to get the additional funds that's needed for an electronic grievance system. 223.9 is the maintenance that we would need for our new body cameras. The request is in the amount of $148,282. But mainly this would be for the storage fees that's associated with body cameras. The next line item is 223.10, which is the contract workers that we have with Augusta University, the medical insurance that's needed for those contract employees. In the amount, the request is $50,689. The
Real quick question, Director, I'm going to interrupt you. Why are we paying benefits to a contract employee?
So what normally in the past, Augusta University, they have paid those health insurance benefits. And this time, it was switched over to our budget for us to cover those benefits.
But they are contractors to you, is that correct?
Yes, we have a medical contract, and they provide all of our medical services to our young people.
I guess I'm confused here. I don't know how we could be paying health benefits for somebody who's a contractor to us.
So what will happen is, my understanding is that these funds will be a part of our contract. And so in the future, as we move forward, this amount will be a part of the contracted amount to include the insurance for those employees.
Okay, we'll have an off-record discussion about this, because if we have a contract with them already, and they're changing the terms of the contract for us for a contractor, I've got a problem with that one, so.
Okay.
Thank you. Not for you, but for what they're trying to charge us. So.
All right.
Thank you.
The next item is 223.11, which is capital maintenance, $4,804,408. And what this does is, we have 6 long-term facilities. So anything from system repairs, major system repairs, upgrades, the security upgrades and repairs that we have to do, and building modifications. This will help us maintain those facilities.
So let me ask you another question on that one. Why is that within the budget and not with the normal capital projects?
Over the last couple of years, for some reason, it's been moved out of the capital. We do have a small request in the capital, but it's been moved into the regular budget. We've been asked to move it to the regular budget.
Yeah, and again, I realize this not being you, this could be our friends in OPB, but it makes no sense that we say capital maintenance or repairs, and it's not in the capital budget where all the other capital maintenance and repairs are. So we're going to move that back to where it needs to be. So we're not going to necessarily change the number. We're going to put it back logically where it belongs.
In relation to that number, is that number for specific repairs, or is this a number in anticipation of preventive maintenance?
So some of the number is we already know the things that we need to do, like with those system upgrades. So when you're talking about things like chillers, water heaters, generators, we know the life expectancy of those things. And then we also already have facilities where we know it's time for us to change out, either do a new roof or to do a roof repair.
And I guess that's my question. Are these for specific projects? Like, is there a chiller that we know has to be replaced? Or are we doing some of this in anticipation of knowing that we have a chiller that may be 24 months or 36 months outside?
So yeah, so we will have a list of some things that we already know. Okay,
and then a list of what?
And then we also know that things will come up that we have not planned for. So some of that number would reflect that as well. I think a big thing in our system also is remembering any damage that our young people do to the facility. We also have to do repairs to that.
Right, but I don't want to get off topic here because we're going to hit the same line item of capital maintenance and repairs when you get to the RYDCs, and that's almost $10 million, $9.8 million. So again, we're going to need a list for what that is, and we're going to be moving that back in the capital budget.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the next thing we have is, as you all know, we're the 181st school district. So the increase that the certified teachers and certified employees are receiving in the amount of $2,500. Our request for our educators is $243,296 to realize that salary increase. The next item we have is 223.13, which is a statutory mandate that we do step increases for our teachers, and it's based on years of service and certification. And so the request on the YDC side is $37,440. We have cut here that we would be taking in the amount of $392,100. That's because we changed the officers' uniforms over to make them more therapeutic. The next item we have is, once again, for the benchmark increase for our JCO1s, and the request is for $620,130.
And I want to take a moment to talk about that, if I could. First off, very thankful that everybody's been working on this initiative, and I think it's long overdue that an entry-level juvenile corrections officer and a traditional corrections officer will now start at the exact same pay rate as they should have. So this is, I think, a good step forward. Do you have a question, Senator?
You spoke faster than my mind as I was making notes. You said something about the uniforms.
Yes.
And you're changing out uniforms for who?
So for our correctional officers, they no longer wear the same uniforms as the adults.
To make it more therapeutic?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
help me understand that real quick.
So basically, everything that we do, we're trying to make sure that our environment is a more therapeutic environment as far as us rehabilitating
And look,
the
I don't want to get
kids.
wrapped around the axle on it. Can you describe a therapeutic uniform to me?
Oh, so basically, it's khakis and polos.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. All right. Continue on here.
All righty, we're moving to 224.7. Once again, we've already talked about the grievance system. 224.8, we've talked about the request here is $427,346, which we've talked about. That's just to cover the data storage costs for the body cameras and other maintenance costs. 224.9, we've already addressed the request is for the $74,100, and I know we're going to talk about the insurance for Augusta University staff. 224.10, the capital maintenance, the $9,808,818 for our 19 RYDCs. 224.11 is for our certified staff, that $2,500 increase. The requested amount is $331,385. 224.12 is the mandatory teacher step increase. On the RYDC side, the amount is $79,560. And then the cut here, because we've already changed over the uniforms, is $1,607,759. And then the increase for our JCOs to increase their salaries, the requested amount is $1,447,772. Our capital request, lines 53 and 54, we were in a situation where we made the request for the design fees, and the costs have gone up. So we're coming back to ask for the additional monies needed to complete the designs, which on both projects, the Macon YDC, which is our only all-girls facility, and then for Milledgeville YDC. For each one of those, we need $1.8 million in order to complete the designs. In addition to...
quick question for that. I'm sorry, before we move on. Interesting how they're both exactly the same amount of increase for two different size facilities.
So the design period, the work that they do when they're designing the facility, it doesn't matter what size the facility is, the base rate for doing the design has always been the same.
Okay.
Milledgeville YDC, which we're proposing to construct a 48-bed facility. The cost for that is $52 million. This facility is very compact as it stands right now. We don't have a kitchen, we don't have adequate programming space, nor do we have adequate education space. So that is the reason why this is critical for us to expand this facility. Line 56.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, if I'm reading this correctly, the 52 million is for an expansion?
Yes.
It's not for a new facility, correct?
Right, we're going to expand what we have at Milledgeville.
Okay, and right now on the make and bid, we are only looking at the design. There is no expansion budgeted for that, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to have to ask one more question then.
Okay.
If the design fees are $1.8 million to expand, and then we already have a cost in of $52 million, how do we know it's $52 million if it's not designed yet?
Exactly.
I'm sorry, can you?
How would we know that the cost will be $52 million if it's not yet been designed?
So what we do is we work with GISFIC on the design. So we have like a bare basic design that we use for all of our facilities that we established with them several years ago. And so what they do is they take that design based on the number of beds and they project out the cost. And then what we are responsible for doing is making sure that whatever vendor we use to construct the facility, that we work within the confines of that budget.
Okay, and with this new expansions and new facilities going up, is that just an increase in the amount of folks that you're supervising at a given time, or are you going to be looking to shut down or do maintenance on any other facilities?
So actually what it does is gives us an opportunity to actually operate based on best practices. So some of our facilities are 80 beds, some we're doing 90 kids, and so what best practices tell us is 56 beds or less is the best type of environment and to try to rehabilitate and provide the services for our young people. In Milledgeville, the number will be going up because that's the smallest YDC that we have. In places like Macon, the bed space would be going down, but normally on any given day, because that's an all-girls facility, we normally run about 35, 40 girls on any given day.
Okay, all right, thank you. One more question.
Yeah, about that, who constructs these? Who's the vendor?
So until we actually get the funds, we don't know. We haven't put it out for bid yet.
And I guess that's where I'm a little confused with inflation, construction costs and everything, and having a solid number of 52 without having it put out for bid yet is, I guess, where I'm a little confused.
So what they do is, GISFIC with our team, what they do is they go in and they build the inflation cost in. There's also contingency funds that's built in, and this is the process that we've always used. We always have to come with a dollar amount, and once again, we use that to determine when we're designing the facility what we think that we can include and what things we may not be able to include.
Thank you.
All right, so I'll just give a final question. We need to move on. I know we're asking you a lot of questions
It's
in one
okay.
specific area. How long until the design is done before it will then go out to bid, before they would actually begin putting shovels in the ground?
So the design normally takes about 14 months to design, and then once the design is complete, it goes out for bid.
Okay, so if I'm looking at that, that means we are going to fall way into the next year's budget of 2026. So having the 52 million might not even make sense in this year's budget.
That could definitely hold true.
Okay, all right. Anything else, Director?
So we have the major repair and renovation request that is here for $2.3 million. And then we also have the Gwinnett RYD request. So this one is a little different. We have not made it to the design phase yet. We're at a situation here where the county is actually willing to provide the state with the land. So we would have the responsibility of then going and making sure that the assessments are completed for that land. And then we would also have the design that would all fall into the $3.8 million.
Okay, great. Yep.
So if I'm tracking on Gwinnett, it's 2 million for the land acquisition and then 1.8 for the design, since the 1.8 is the consistent number that we've always paid for design?
So what is different on Gwinnett, when we started this process, we were going to be doing land acquisition. What has changed since then is that the county has offered to give us the land. So in this cost, you have the design and the assessments that we would have to do on the land before we could actually start building.
So 3.8 is designs and engineering?
Yes.
On the dirt?
It's the design of the building,
Correct.
and also it's the assessment of the land that the county has found for us.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We're going to try and stay on track here. Any final comments?
No, thank you all for all of the great questions, and thank you for the continued support.
And thank you, Director. I know that your team deals with some very challenged youth. They can sometimes be extraordinarily violent. You don't have necessarily some of the wire and protections that some of our friends in corrections have as well. So we appreciate the work they do, and please pass along that to you and your team.
Thank you, will do.
Thank you. All right, CJCC, come on down. That's page 68 in our tracking sheets.
On the house one on here.
This one?
Yes.
Director, how are you, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm doing very well. I hope you are.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you this morning and share our budget for fiscal year 25. We certainly appreciate you and your committee, your support that you've continued to show for our agency and the work that we do around the state. And we thank you for the opportunity again today. I want to begin by thanking the governor and OPB for addressing some critical issues, critical needs within our agency, and not only our agency, needs relating to our partners around the state that we fund. The governor has provided now $96 million in supplemental funding to provide assistance to our nonprofits around the state, and we're certainly appreciative of all that he has done. We appreciate you in the legislature for the help that you provided for our Crime Victims Compensation Program over the last couple of years as well. Those supplements that you provided have been critical, and we appreciate that very much. Now to our budget that is before us. I think you have the House tracking sheet in front of you, it looks like. 30.6.1 is increase the funds to provide a 4% cost.
You don't need to cover any of the
Okay.
statewide changes.
All right. I will say that this covers every one of our employees, which we are grateful for. The 30.6.6 is transfer funds from CJCC to Public Safety Training Center for School Resource and De-escalation training. That annualizes what we did in the amended budget, taking the remaining portion of our law enforcement training grant to GIPSTIC for those purposes. 30.6.7 utilize existing $95,000 for one budget and finance support position for our admin office. That is a governor's recommendation. 30.6.8 utilize existing funds to maintain current grant operations, total of $996,046. Beginning last year, we started holding positions open at CJCC. As of January 1, we had 14 open positions that we had not filled. It was our plan to hold another 10 positions, getting to 24. This ad allowed us to stop where we were with those 14 positions and not have to continue holding positions open going forward. We're very grateful for that add. 30.6.9 is a House add. Funds to restore 7 grant specialist positions and a budget analyst position. This goes back to those 14 positions that was open effective January 1, allowing us to begin backfilling some of those positions that we've been holding open over the course of the past year or so. 30.6.10, provide funds for personal services and operating expenses to promote the stability of the Crime Victims Emergency Fund. This goes to the Crime Victims Compensation Program. 2 years, we put $8.5 million in an amended budget to help deal with the roughly $6 million a year in lost revenues that we've experienced since the beginning of COVID. This would provide half of our operating expenses for that Crime Victims Emergency Program moving forward. We certainly appreciate the House add of those operating funds. 30.8.4, increase funds for domestic violence shelters for administrative personnel and facility costs related to compliance with state standards of $14.7 million. You may remember the report that we did at your all's request, looking at what it would require to fully fund our sexual assault and domestic violence programs for state certification. And we found in that report that we were about $44 million short of providing full funding for state certification. This $14.7 million goes toward closing that gap on state certification. 30.8.5, increase funds for sexual assault centers for administrative personnel and facility costs related to compliance with state standards. This is the sexual assault side of that equation, $14.7 million on domestic violence and $2 million for sexual assault, going toward the state certification requirements. 30.8.6, provide funds for sexual assault nurse examiner, SANE coordinators, and improve access to SANE resources for sexual assault centers. One of the things that we were hearing on a regular basis was the difficulty of finding adequate access to SANEs. This would provide a SANE coordinator in each of our facilities around the state, providing access to our victims around the state. That is another House add. 30.8.7, the House added increased funds for 6 sexual assault centers of $325,000. We currently fund 28 of the 34 sexual assault centers around the state with our family violence program. 6 centers have not been receiving funding up to this point. This provides those funds to all 34 of our sexual assault centers. In addition, 21 satellite sexual assault centers would receive $570,000. Wow. Yeah. I'll let y'all hook on that. We only did $570,000. These satellite offices are mainly in the rural parts of the state. I think I shared with your committee last time I had just met with the sheriff in a county that had a satellite office that he was afraid was about to close. And he shared with me if that satellite office closed and he had a woman report at 3 a.m. with a rape, that his only option with her would be to put her in the back of a cruiser and transport her 125 miles to get a forensic medical exam done. So this would provide funding for those. And by the way, those satellite offices are still required to meet the same state certifications as the sexual assault center that they are under the umbrella of. If approved, these funds in lines 30.8.4, 5, 6, and 7 would fully close the projected funding shortfall that is currently projected for fiscal year 25. You all heard, I know, last fall when we had to make the VOCA cuts from partners around the state and what kind of impact that was going to have. The governor put $13 million in ARPA funds in December to close that gap and prevent those cuts that were about to take place. $26 million was announced last month in additional ARPA funds. That still left a gap in fiscal year 25. This fully closes that gap in fiscal year 25. So we will not have any cuts in this coming year with this funding in place. There could still be a future challenge in fiscal year 26 as the supplemental funds run out. We've been kicking the can down the road for a number of years, waiting on the federal government to fix the problem. This gives us another year for the federal government to fix that problem, and we certainly would appreciate consideration from the Senate. That is our presentation, and I will be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
All right, questions for Jay before we hear from the accountability courts? Question from Senator Robertson.
Jay, I was listening to something the other day, the SANE nurses, if you will, they are the nurses that coordinate with the sexual assault centers, right? Do they also work with the domestic violence shelters also?
They work for the sexual assault centers primarily. The SANE nurses could be employees of sexual assault centers. They could be contractors with sexual assault centers. They could be working in hospital settings and providing FMEs in a hospital setting. So
right. There was a question about strangulation. That strangulation is included in the sexual assault eval. When a victim comes in, the strangulation protocols are followed there, and they were wanting to add them to the DV side. And
there was a little bit of misunderstanding, I think, with that strangulation issue. So if someone presents, a sexual assault victim presents, and a SANE nurse is doing a forensic medical exam, the SANE nurse, we provide much of the training for SANE nurses around the state. We have a statewide coordinator in our office that provides much of that training. They are being trained in what to screen for the need of a further strangulation evaluation. They will do that in the FME, and if they recognize in that screening that there's a need, in order to really do a strangulation evaluation, that has to be done in a hospital setting. Yes. Because there's some pretty, it's a little bit more intense. Some dyes have to be added, so you can do some screening to see if there's any internal damage that cannot be visibly seen. What we have learned since the committee hearing last week is that some SANE nurses are being called out with domestic violence situations to do an evaluation or a screening on a strangulation. So if a law enforcement officer is a domestic violence situation, they don't see bruises, they don't see visible signs of strangulation. We have just learned that they are sometimes calling SANE nurses to come to do a screening to see if that individual needs to be evaluated. At this time, we're having conversations with the SANE nurses to try to determine if there's a path to pay for that. We don't know what that path is right now, but we're having those conversations.
Isn't the normal path that the individual be transported to the emergency room and they'd be done there?
That is where the evaluation has to be done.
Right,
there is a screening that can be done to determine if a further evaluation is
yeah,
done.
I just heard it, and I just want to make sure we weren't getting too far outside of our comfort zone.
No.
On some of
A
that.
strangulation evaluation has to be done in a hospital setting.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions for Director Neal? Seeing none, and thank you so much. Let's hear from our accountability courts.
Yes.
I was trying to define my role this morning, and I think that I am the cheerleader for the accountability courts.
That's a good role.
First of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank this committee for years of supporting of all the accountability courts. And on behalf of all of the accountability court judges in the state, whether they be superior, state, or juvenile, we truly say thank you. My name is Brenda Weaver. I serve as the Chief Judge in the Appalachian Circuit. That's Fannin, Gilmer, and Pickens counties. I have been on the bench for 28 years. For 22 of those years, I have served as an accountability court judge. In other words, I was an accountability court judge before it was cool. I started our court in 2002, and I currently preside in our felony drug court as well as our veterans court. Now, in 2015, the General Assembly created the Council of Accountability Court Judges. And you told us at that point in time, and it was our charge in the law itself, that we were to govern and provide the framework for accountability court in the state of Georgia. In other words, in order to receive the money that you give us each year, each court must do certain things. We were charged with setting state standards, procedures. We were told to certify courts, to do peer reviews, and to make sure that the money you give us is given to us and it is used in the way that you want it to be used. We have done that, and we continue to do that for 184 courts. Now, please remember, all defendants cannot go into accountability courts. We are instructed and even told in the law that certainly we take in individuals who have substance use disorders and mental health issues, but we do not accept those that have serious violent crimes, that are sex offenders, or have any type of gang-related activity. We take those individuals who have those disorders that we can treat in the community, that we can be accountable for, they can be accountable for, and that at graduations, which many of you have attended, that we see the benefits for not only the defendant, their families, but the community as well. You will find that most sheriffs and county commissioners in all of our counties, and I'm proud to say certainly in my circuit, strongly support accountability courts. So, thank you again. At this point in time, I'd like to turn it over and introduce some staff who do the actual hard work. That would be Taylor Jones, who is the Executive Director of the Council of Accountability Court Judges. We have Josh Becker, who is the Assistant Director, and we have Allison Lerner, who is the General Counsel for our Council of Accountability Court Judges. So again, on behalf of all the judges, thank you so much, and I will be glad to answer any questions after Taylor. I could talk about accountability courts all day, and I know you don't have time for that, but thank you very
Your Honor.
much.
We appreciate your leadership and your great work on the bench, and Director Jones is no stranger to our committee, so come on down.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Judge Weaver. Good morning. I would be remiss if I didn't do this as I did in the FY24 budget hearing when we were before you, but I just want to, Judge Weaver has said a lot of thanks, but I also want to recognize the judges, the court coordinators, the case managers, treatment providers, prosecutors, public defenders, defense attorneys, law enforcement officers, probation officers, and others that work as a team to make these programs work for our state. Simply put, the demand for our courts remains high. We talked a little bit about this the last time I was before you, but our data reports are showing that last year in FY23, we served 269 more participants than we did in FY22. It's about a 4% increase that we saw from between those two fiscal years. And further, already for fiscal year 24 at the close of Q1, so as of September 30th, we were serving 4,791 participants, and this can be compared to the 4,261 served at the same period of time last FY. So that's a difference of 530 folks already additional folks that are already being served through our programs. It's about a 12.5% increase. So I'm going to jump to our line items. I'm going to skip the first two, the statewide adjustments, and go straight to line 30.7.3. This provides an amount of $1,916,416 to support existing accountability court growth. Our courts are, like I just said, serving more. This amount would allow us to serve 393 additional participants at the average annual cost of $4,864. And our courts are working hard to serve their communities regardless of where they're located in the state or the economic status of the participants that may qualify to be served. So of course we're asking for your favorable consideration of this amount. Line 30.7.4 recommends an amount of $585,987. This is for one new DUI court and two new mental health courts, the expansion of a felony drug court, and one new juvenile drug court. These courts include the Tipton Judicial Circuit. They want to start a new mental health court. The Coweta Circuit wants to expand their mental health court. Paulding County is wishing to start a DUI court. And Hall County is wanting to expand their already large felony drug court. And Augusta is wanting to bring on a juvenile drug court. We have a notice of intent to apply process in our office that we do every summer, and we require that courts provide data and justification before we come before you and ask for these funds for expansion. Each one of those courts have done that work. Line 30.7.5 recommends an amount of $112,200 for an administrative coordinator position to support the work of the council. We serve about 150 judges through the various classes of courts that Judge Weaver went through, state, superior, and juvenile. And we also serve 184 accountability court programs. We do this with just 13 dedicated CACJ positions. You may recall that we are a shared services model, so we look to our friends at the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council as well at the Administrative Office of the Courts to support us in areas of fiscal staff, HR, and IT. We do not employ those types of personnel directly.
And Taylor, we're going to have to wrap up to keep going. We're going to fall behind here.
Okay, I'm sorry. This position is needed to fulfill the day-to-day administrative operations of our office, and it is a top priority for us. And finishing out, line 30.7.6 recommends an amount of $343,687 for MRT. We are actually respectfully requesting that this amount be allocated for MAT, medication-assisted treatment. We did have some conversation with the House yesterday and understand the funding, that was their intent, that this funding would be for MAT. Alone last year in FY23, there were 242 participants already being served through medication-assisted treatment, coupled with cognitive behavioral therapy that provides that whole patient approach for those with an opioid use disorder. I went through some of our performance measures when I was here with you last time about recidivism rates. I'm going to leave you with one that I don't think I spoke to last time. In FY23, our courts reunified 65 children with their parents through accountability courts, and there were 31 drug-free babies born. We, of course, are continuing to be more cost-effective. You have copies of our annual reports. We're thankful for your support, and we're happy to answer questions.
Questions to committee members?
30 seconds. Just really quick, Director, to you and the judge, I'm an old guy, and I remember before accountability courts, and I remember post accountability courts and conditional discharge and some of the other programs, and I do not know where we would be today in our jails and prisons if we did not have these accountability courts working the way they are. Thank you all so much for doing what you're doing.
Yeah, amen. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. We're going to have Department of Defense come on down, and corrections, you're going to be on deck. We're going to be on page 40 of our tracking sheet, and we're going to have to make up some time here, so if we could, let's stay on point.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I believe I can help you make up some time today. I'm Joe Ferrer. I'm the Deputy Adjutant General for the Georgia Department of Defense. General Carden says his greetings, and I'm glad to be here on behalf of the 15,000 men and women of the Georgia Department of Defense, 2,100 of whom are deployed around the world. So our budget, I'll talk just the gross numbers, and then we can get into the line numbers as you see fit.
I don't think there are really too many changes on that. I think your bigger ones are on the capital part of the budget, if
yes,
I'm correct, General.
And there is a change on our personnel costs. OPB was kind enough to try to add in 100% state funding for the pay raise. However, we don't need that, so we worked with them. We're giving back $1.1 million.
We appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Out of our 450 employees, only about 2% of them are fully state funded. The rest of them are funded largely by the federal government. So we want the federal government to pay their share for those employees. So that's what resolved that problem. On the 1% efficiency reduction, we would give up $124,000 for youth programs, and that's really a natural reduction there. After COVID, we really have not been able to get back to the same number of cadets at our Youth Challenge program. We like the number we've got. It's much more manageable, so we're happy to return that as part of our efficiency cut. And then on the capital budget, it's a total of $16 million, $12 million for armory refurbishment, actually, rebuilding armories. Right now, we've got 3 on the list, and it's Statesboro, Hartwell, and LaGrange. We've got 3 others in backup, Cedartown, Waynesboro, and Washington. What we typically do with these is 50% state funds, 50% federal funds. However, the federal government, the U.S. Department of Defense, is balking at giving us their half. So we will reduce the number that we refurbish this year if they don't come through to 3. But we're still working them. We're pushing them hard. We are not letting up. We want them to cough up their share as well. And then the remaining $4 million is for repair and maintenance of armories. It's those unprojected we know by experience we're going to have. And that money, that $4 million is also matched, and the feds do have this money. It's matched either 50-50 or 75-25, with the state being either the 50 or the 25% share on maintenance of armories with that funding. And with that, that's all I've got, sir.
All right, questions? General, thank you for the great work for all our guards, men and women, and we appreciate everything that you do.
Yes, sir. Thank
All
you
right,
very
we're
much.
gonna keep moving. Dartmouth Corrections, and we are going to be out of this room in the next 28 minutes. So I'm going to ask the last three to be less than 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right,
I'll
page
be
37 on our track sheet. Go ahead.
I'll be very
Commissioner.
brief. May I just go over some of the House changes? I think the committee's already familiar with some of the others. So House tracking number 19.5.7 is the county $2 per diem increase. That's 1.7 that the House put in. Just as a note, that's the House only funded half of what's needed for that, and so just to put that on your radar as well. In private prisons, 19.6.1 and 19.6.2 is the cost of living, 4% cost of living adjustment, and also the law enforcement
Yeah,
per
don't
diem.
worry about any statewide changes, Commissioner.
Okay.
Yep.
The House put that in as well. It wasn't in. It wasn't
Okay,
in there.
okay.
That's why I was going to just
Thank
cover
you.
that
My
for the
ear,
private
my ear.
prisons for the pay parity. State prisons and just a note on state prisons that on our private cellular networks and managed access that was funded in the amended the annual maintenance fees. They were not included in there. It was about 3.8 million.
I was just say, I thought it was right
To
about
add.
$4 million, and then we also were looking at a 3-year period of implementing the solutions at the remaining prisons.
Correct.
I think we did 12 or 13 first year, is that right?
Yes.
Nine.
Nine.
Sorry, no,
Nine. It was 9.
All right, so we have 13 left, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, so if we did 9 funding in the mid-year adjusted 24 budget, how many could we get done in the fiscal 25 budget? Could we do 6 or 7 more?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so is 7 the right number? I know we're
Yes,
going to try and chunk. All right,
7,
so
yes.
we're going to work on putting 7 more in there, and the goal of the 26 budget to get the remaining 6 so everything is up to speed.
Yes, sir.
And does that include the new state-of-the-art prison we're building as well in those
Yes.
numbers? Okay.
What-
That would probably be in the capital outlay budget.
Okay, I want to make sure that we're,
The new prison, once the capital outlay in there, everything, all the technology that's needed
Okay.
will be
all right, very
included in
good.
that funding.
This is a top priority of the Senate.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I think that's going to be it. If you have any other questions, that's all the House changes. Unless you want me to
No,
cover
I
anything.
guess the one question that always comes up is the significant healthcare increase
Yes.
year over year over year. I know that Rob on your team and I are actually going to do a follow-up call from some complaints I got for some folks that work for some of the outsourced vendors, not about you, but about the vendors themselves. And some of the feedback you're receiving and some very trusted people with decades of service is that the vendors have added an extraordinary amount of overhead staff, most in non-medical positions, people who report to people who report to people, as well as issues with getting some basic supplies. So off-session you're doing, but for the vendors that are doing, that we're going to have a very, very sharp eye and pencil on them. So this is a forewarning shot to get their ducks in a row now.
Well, good. We appreciate the support on that as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, Senator Robertson.
Yes, Commissioner, I was just going to say that tie really brings out your eyes and your tender and compassionate side. It's always good to see you.
Well, thank you, thank you. And that was and all the cheers you heard out there was for y'all, being so efficient. So they appreciate it out there.
Well, again, we appreciate the great work your men and women do every day. You are literally fighting a war on a day-to-day basis sometimes,
Absolutely.
and we're grateful. I think over the years, long before you were in your position, and many of us were even in this building, that some have done a phenomenal job in service to our state as contractors, and some have done an inadequate job. So
Yes.
we want to make sure that we're getting the phenomenal customer service job.
Absolutely. And we're on top of that healthcare situation as well. So
Thank
you.
you. All right, questions from the committee members? Thank you for your great work.
Thank you, sir.
All right, moving on. DCS. Page 35 in our tracking sheets. Let's see. There we are. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I'm Bert Fluellen. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Operations for the department. I've got Olivia Duke here with me as well, our CFO. It's good to be here today and ask for your favorable consideration over several budget items that we have. In the interest of time, I'll skip ahead to the non-statewide changes that we have. The first one is on House Sheet 18, line 18.2.8, and it's a reduction in leased office space. So strategically, since inception, we have been reducing our real estate footprint to the tune of 55 locations. And we're at the point now where further reductions could adversely affect our operations. And the House saw the value that these locations present, and they chose to restore that cut. So we're very grateful of that. And the next line is 18.2.9, and that's community supervision aid positions. And if you're not familiar with that, that's a non-sworn employee that works in a field office and does administrative tasks that sworn officers traditionally do. So they're basically freeing up time for those officers to focus on high-risk, high-need individuals.
And let's talk about that if we can for a moment. I believe the original request was going to be for 50 positions.
That was the original.
Right. Then it was cut down to 25 positions, and it looks like the House then funded 12 of those positions. Is that not accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay. All right. Just make sure we're clear on that.
So we still stand by the original recommendation. We feel like it's a good value to taxpayers, and we feel like it enhances public safety because our position is why pay an officer to do work that someone could do for $21,000 a year less money. So we think it's a good value. So skipping ahead to our capital request, we have 111 replacement vehicles in the amount of $5.7 million. I know this committee is well aware of how important vehicles are to us. They serve as a mobile field office, so to speak, and some of these have outlived their useful lifespan. So it's.
And I know we've had this discussion in the past because there was a lot of folks who are sharing cars, and trying to get someone to a location to pick up a car and back and forth has become, I know, sometimes easy if they live close to each other, but can be quite a bit more difficult in moving people around. How many cars per officer will you have now?
So we have one car for every 2 officers.
Okay. And how do you think that is working out as far as sharing vehicles?
It's working well for us, sir.
All right, good. All right. Question from Senator Robertson.
A lot of research has been done throughout the public safety on the take-home car program to where we found out the maintenance costs were less on a take-home car where an officer wasn't putting as many miles on the vehicle as fast and all this. This one vehicle for 2 officers, are these officers working same shifts, different shifts, or how does that work?
They work it out between themselves, and so they pretty much always have a car available to them. We found that when our count gets more in line with a 1-to-1, there's a lot of downtime in the vehicle. They're not getting utilized in the most efficient way.
Okay, and if the chairman, if you'll bear with me real quick, the bricks and mortar, how many bricks and mortar spots do y'all have now?
63.
We have 51 leased offices and 12 state-owned.
And that's down from what was the number a couple of years back?
112.
112? Thank you.
All right. Questions? Seeing none, thank you. And again, we appreciate the great work you all do. I know that as, again, criminal justice reform, as we've had more people to supervise, you all have been embracing a lot of technology and, again, getting your folks out in the field more. We appreciate the great work of the men and women who serve in the department.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Last but certainly not least, who've been very, very patient for us, our very own Georgia Bureau of Investigation. That's page 67 on your tracker sheet.
I'm sorry, what is this group? What do they do?
They keep us out of trouble.
Starting with me already.
Director Hosey, thank you for the great work you all do, and we'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your time, committee members. Thank you for allowing us to be here. I stand here proud this morning to represent the men and women of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to present this to you. I will skip over the previous mentioned items, the COLA, the raises for sworn, and the statewide adjustments, but do let me say we are very appreciative of that. I'll start at 30.1.5. That reflects and utilizes the $1.1 million from FY23 to continue our facility security upgrades. That's already in our budget, and we would be utilizing that to spend obviously to upgrade security facilities. 30.3.5 increases funds to annualize the 21 crime lab positions that were partially funded in 24. We're still in the process of hiring those 14 scientists, 2 lab managers, 4 lab techs, and 1 evidence tech. And the majority of those 8 crime lab scientist positions are going toward the chemistry section, just to give a reference there. 30.3.3 is to increase funds to restore the service contracts for our crime lab instrumentation. In FY21, we were cut $1.1 million in funds for those service contracts for the crime lab. Not having those impacts our backlogs, the downtime of equipment, slower response time for technicians or vendors to come out and repair that. 30.3.8 increases funds for 6 death investigation specialists, 1 forensic photographer, 1 quality control manager, 1 business support analyst supervisor, and 1 business support analyst in the medical examiner's office to address the increased workload. That is support staff for them. That is $1.334031 million. We currently only have 1 forensic photographer. The 6 death investigation specialists would be at headquarters, and we try to keep an average of 2 to 3 of those per doctor. And as our doctor numbers are increasing, as I'll touch on in just a second, those needs go up as well. Some of this other support staff is for our child fatality review unit that is under the medical examiner's office. That's 3 analyst positions, which are detached to us from DHS, but we'll be adding a supervisor and business analyst for that. They currently are reviewing about 400 child deaths per year as part of that unit and looking for ways to reduce that number, obviously through education, prevention, and so forth. 30.3.9 is $251,421 for increased funds to provide locality pay for the 3 medical examiner positions for our Pooler office to increase that recruitment as well. We utilized that in FY23 for Macon, and it has been successful. Right now, we're anticipating by summer, hopefully, fingers crossed, that between the recruitment that we're doing in the fellowship program, we will add at least 2 doctors to the Pooler ME's office.
It's wonderful news.
30.3.6 will eliminate funds for one-time startup funding associated with new positions that were funded in 24. Those are the 24 lab positions, and that was again for just one-time funding, equipment, and so forth. 30.3.10 is $1,151,508. It would increase funds to provide targeted retention initiatives for our 229 current crime lab scientists. This increase would provide a $3,000 salary adjustment for the scientists. In FY23, our turnover of scientists was 8.17%, and it is needed obviously for retention and to tackle the current backlog. If this was approved, this would increase crime lab scientists' starting salary from $58,500 to $61,500. I want to add with that also, I reported to you last time I was here that between June and January of this year, or going in from 23 to 24, we saw a 12% reduction in our backlog. We checked those statistics again to add February into it, so that would be from June of last year till February this year, and we increased that by 3% to 15% reduction in the backlog. And I credit that to the hardworking men and women in the lab, and also the positions that we've been able to add to the crime lab for those services. 30.311 increases funds to provide targeted retention initiatives for our lab technicians and evidence receiving techs. There are 78 lab techs and evidence receiving technicians with the agency. That cost would be $1,019,764. The starting salary for lab techs and evidence receiving techs, which our evidence receiving techs are the first ones that touch evidence when it comes to the lab. The lab techs are assisting in the lab, working closely with the scientists. Their starting salary right now is $37,200. and this would increase them to $45,000. The federal average for these positions ranges from $41,400 up to $66,000, and in most places where lab technicians are level 2 or level 3, that's 2 or 3 years experience, that salary ranges from 56 plus to over 88,000. So we're looking to bring them to 45,000. 30.3.12 would transfer funds from the Forensic Science Services Special Project Program to enhance GBI's ability to hire additional medical examiners. This was take the House version and collapse the Forensic Science Services Special Project, which dealt with Macon, and put it back up under the Forensic Scientific Services Program, and putting it all under one roof, so to speak. 30.5.6 increases funds to add 2 criminal intel analysts to support the criminal gang database. That is $307,746. 30.5.7 would transfer the funds that the Colonel mentioned earlier from the Department of Public Safety to GBI for 2 watch desk analyst positions. 30.5.8 would increase funds for 9 special agents, 2 digital forensic investigators, 2 criminal intel analysts, 1 office manager, and associated costs for the GBI's creation of a gang task force in Columbus, Georgia. We're still continuing to work closely with Columbus Solidated Government on that project. That is $4,865,094. 30.5.9 would eliminate one-time funds that were associated back in FY24 for the cold case unit, and that basically is consisted of vehicles, one-time purchases of equipment, and so forth. 30.510 would increase funds for ongoing case management system. That is the case management system for our case files, creation, so on and so forth. We're expecting that to go out to RFP by the middle of March. 30.511 would increase funds for investigative tools for our cold case unit. That total is $155,000. $75,000 of that would be to outsource genetic genealogy at a cost of approximately $7,500 per case. That's the average. It can go higher than that, it can go lower than that, but that is the average. And then investigative artificial intelligence at $80,000 to assist on the cold cases with social media and internet potential leads. 30.512 provides funds for targeted retention initiative for 21 digital forensic investigators, 6 forensic auditors, and 34 criminal intel analysts. That would be at a cost of $406,938, and it would provide a $4,000 salary increase for these critical non-sworn positions that play such a big role in our investigative casework. I'll jump to capital funds real quick and finish up for you. 50.1.51 is construction of the medical examiner's annex. That is $4,100,000. That is for the design of it is underway. This is actually for the construction of it. It will add 8 autopsy stations, additional coolers, 25 decedents. We can currently store, it will go to a 50 in, 50 out in that lab. Also some other items that it will add to it. And then 50.1.52 is just major facility maintenance, repairs, and renovations at $2,200,000 for our current statewide investigative offices, crime labs, MEO. It consists of renovations and some equipment replacements within those buildings.
All right, questions? I've got one from Senator Lucas.
Director, how are we doing with the recruitment of these medical examiners? I understand they like gold when they finish college.
I think we're doing very well. As I mentioned, through the recruitment that our ME's office is doing, the fellowship program, I believe we have 2 or 3 in the program now. I know 2 of them are going to stay with GBI, plus we are making an additional hire from outside of the fellowship program. So by summertime, we'll have 3 additional doctors, and as I mentioned, 2 of them are committed to go into Pooler.
I understand Mercer Medical School is now going to try to train folks to go in that field. And I was just wondering, because for a point of time, we called HEAA trying to get medical examiners so we could take care of the needs around the state.
Well, I mean, we'll reach out to anybody and work in partnership to recruit medical doctors, because I believe once they see what GBI is all about and the team that we've got going over there, that may be what attracts them from other states. That's my hope. With the future expansion of the ME's office down there, I think that will help as well, because it will be a nice facility once completed. And also, I'll say this from Macon, and I credit our ME office team for this. They are working on redoing the scheduling and basically working more rotations to get doctors on a rotating basis to Macon to help that process go along and get the results and the needs completed faster.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, Director, thank you for the great work you and your team do. I'm sorry you had to go last this time. Got you first, and we'll get you back up at the top of the list next year, though, I promise.
That'll be fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for all the men and women of GBI. All right, nothing else before the committee. We are hereby adjourned. Have a great day.